Secrets humanity lost because of time travel. What if everything we know about history is only half the truth? What if the greatest treasures of human knowledge, inventions, cures, wisdom itself, did not simply disappear, but were erased, not by time alone, by time travel? Imagine this. Somewhere, somewhen, a traveler moved through time. Maybe by accident, maybe with purpose. And in doing so, they shifted our path, tearing away entire solutions humanity once held in its grasp. Take the Antikythera mechanism, a strange machine discovered in a sunken Greek shipwreck. It is more than 2,000 years old. Yet inside, bronze gears mesh with stunning precision. A device capable of predicting eclipses, tracking the heavens, even guiding sailors with astronomical knowledge. By all logic, it should not exist. No one in ancient Greece was supposed to have built something like this. It is a computer, from before computers existed. But what if it wasn't born there? What if this was knowledge carried through time, perhaps from a future where such mechanisms were common? And when that timeline collapsed, the invention was lost. Only fragments remaining, rusting beneath the sea. Think of it. We could have reached the stars centuries earlier. We could have understood the language of the universe before the fall of Rome. But the solution was stolen by the currents of time itself. And so today, we struggle with problems we may have already solved. Diseases, climate, war, survival, because the answers slipped through the cracks of time. Water, the lifeblood of survival. Today, billions suffer without it. Yet the ancients may have solved this long ago. The Mayan water filtration systems were so advanced, they used materials like crystalline quartz to purify drinking water. Entire cities were supplied with safe water long before modern science rediscovered these methods. But here's the tragedy. Those systems were forgotten, erased when their civilization collapsed, or perhaps altered. A single ripple in time, a lost traveler disrupting one leader's choices, could have caused the downfall of the Mayan Empire. And with it, humanity lost centuries of clean water technology. Today children die of thirst and disease. Imagine the tears of mothers holding their children knowing their village drinks poison. And yet long ago, those tears didn't have to fall. The solution existed, but it was lost to time. And then there is Roman concrete. Rome built harbors, aqueducts, and walls that could withstand the sea for over 2,000 years. Even today, modern engineers admit Roman concrete is stronger, greener, and longer lasting than most of what we build now. And yet, the recipe is gone. Wars, fires, the fall of empires, perhaps even the meddling of something beyond our time, erased it. We build skyscrapers that crumble in decades, highways that crack and fail. Billions spent on repairs that the Romans had already solved centuries ago. If time had flowed differently, imagine the world we live in. Cities that stand for millennia. Roads that never crumble. Homes that never collapse in earthquakes. But those solutions, once held in human hands, slipped away like whispers in the dark. Even medicine. The Egyptians once practiced brain surgery. The Indians developed early forms of plastic surgery. In the Middle Ages, there were herbs and cures, smallpox treatments, remedies for infections that vanished into dust. Some were burned. Some were forgotten in plague-ravaged towns, and some, perhaps, were undone by time's cruel paradox. Because what if? And here's the terrifying thought. What if cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, even pandemics, were once within reach, but a single misstep in history? A timeline reset ensured that today we suffer still. Every solution we've lost carries a human cost. The thirst that should never have been. The hunger that could have been fed. The sickness that could have been cured. The lives, millions, billions of lives that could have been spared. And the cruelest truth? We may never know if these solutions were stolen by fate or by something far stranger. Perhaps by time travelers themselves. Secrets humanity lost because of time travel. What happens to a civilization when its timeline is rewritten? History tells us of nations that rose to glory and then mysteriously disappeared. The Indus Valley civilization, thriving with indoor plumbing and organized cities, collapsed without explanation. The Anasazi of North America vanished, leaving only cliff dwellings and silence. And deep in the jungles of the Amazon, archaeologists now find traces of vast forgotten cities, advanced societies erased from memory. Were they destroyed by famine, by war, or were they erased by time itself? The Mayans mapped the stars with breathtaking accuracy. They knew the movements of planets, predicted eclipses, and tracked cycles of time itself. But then, their great cities fell silent. Some say drought ended them, others whisper of conquest. But what if their disappearance was not a natural ending, but a rupture? What if a traveler shifted one moment, one choice, and the Mayan Empire blinked out of the timeline? It leaves us with a chilling question. How much knowledge vanished with them? The medicines, the calendars, the cosmic wisdom, all gone. Humanity's story written anew with a page torn out forever. But knowledge is not always stone or steel. Sometimes it lives in stories. The Aboriginal Australians carried star maps, navigation routes, and ecological wisdom in their oral traditions. Stories told across thousands of years. But colonization silenced many of those voices. Some stories are gone forever, taking with them a map of the skies and the land that we will never fully recover. It is as if a cosmic hand reached into history and pulled threads loose, unraveling a tapestry woven over millennia. And what if that hand belonged to time travel itself? A timeline where stories survived might have given us a deeper bond with the earth. A timeline where humanity listened instead of forgot. Perhaps the most haunting loss of all. The Library of Alexandria. It is said to have held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. The accumulated knowledge of Egypt, Greece, India, China, medicine, engineering, astronomy, philosophy, all gathered in one place, beacon of human brilliance. And then it burned. Right. But what if that fire was not just an accident of history? Right. What if that was the effect of a timeline snapping, a paradox unfolding? What if that library still exists? In another version of history we can no longer reach. Think of what was lost. Blueprints for machines never built. Cures for diseases we still fight. Stories from civilizations that now remain only as whispers. Knowledge that could have carried us centuries into the future. Today, when we struggle for answers, when children die for want of medicine, when nations fight wars over resources, I wonder, were the solutions already there? Were they waiting for us in the shelves of Alexandria, now nothing but ash? Every lost secret feels like that empty net. Humanity once reached into the sea of time, pulling out treasures, answers, solutions. But then, something pulled them away. If time travel exists, even in secret, even as whispers, then every shift, every paradox, every erased possibility carries consequences. Not only for the travelers, but for all of us. We live inside the leftovers of a rewritten story. And the question that keeps me awake at night is this. What else have we lost that we don't even remember we ever had? Sometimes, when I look at ruins, I don't see failure, I see memory. I see a timeline where laughter filled these streets, where cures were brewed in clay pots, where people knew how to live in harmony with the earth. And then one moment, one ripple in the ocean of time, swept it all away. We are the orphans of time. And the secrets we lost are not just inventions or words. They are the futures we could have lived. If time travel is real, even in secret, then every ripple, every interference carries weight. This is the heart of the paradox. The smallest change can erase an entire future. Traveler steps on one path instead of another, and suddenly a cure is never written. An invention is never built. A library burns that once survived. We call it the butterfly effect. One fragile wing beat in the past, creating a storm in the present. But the tragedy is not just abstract. It is human. It means that maybe, just maybe, some of the answers to our greatest struggles were erased not by chance, but by someone tampering with the threads of time. Think of disease. What if, in one version of history, the cure for cancer was discovered centuries ago? A formula etched on parchment passed down through generations. But then a traveler, perhaps even with good intentions, shifts the course of events. The parchment burns. The scholar dies young. The discovery never reaches us. Aid. And so, millions of children today suffer through treatments that break their bodies, families shattered by loss, when perhaps somewhere in the echoes of time they should have lived. This is not just a paradox. It is a theft of futures. History is full of sparks, moments when brilliance ignited and then disappeared. Da Vinci's flying machines never took flight. Nikola Tesla's rumored inventions, wireless energy, vanished in secrecy. Chinese scholars described gunpowder centuries before the West, but much of their research was suppressed, lost to wars. What if these sparks were not simply smothered? What if they were extinguished by paradox, by timelines collapsing, inventions unraveling as if they had never been born? The cruelty of time travel is this: it does not simply destroy the present, leaving us blind to the futures we were once destined to inherit. Some theorists speak of the grandfather paradox, that to alter the past is to risk erasing yourself. But perhaps the paradox is greater than that. Perhaps altering the past erases not the traveler, but entire solutions, entire generations of progress. What if by saving one person, a traveler doomed millions? What if by stopping one war, they triggered another timeline where peace was never possible? In trying to control time, we may have cost ourselves the wisdom of ages. And here lies the deepest pain. We will never know what we've lost. The questions that should have had answers. The knowledge that should have filled these books. The cures, the clean water, the peace that may have been ours, now only shadows. It is like waking each morning with the memory of a dream just out of reach. A dream of a better world, one that feels real, and yet slips away the moment we open our eyes. We ache for it, though we cannot name it. We grieve for it, though we never held it. As in some version of time, we did. And here lies the deepest pain. We will never know what we've lost. The questions that should have had answers. The knowledge that should have filled these books. The cures, the clean water, the peace that may have been ours. Now only shadows. It is like waking each morning with the memory of a dream just out of reach. A dream of a better world. One that feels real, and yet slips away the moment we open our eyes. We ache for it, though we cannot name it. We grieve for it, though we never held it, because in some version of time, we did. If time travel is real, then we are living in one chosen version of the story, one that may already be scarred by countless unseen edits. And every edit carries a cost. It's not just inventions, not just books or buildings, but the deepest cost of all, human lives. For every lost solution, there is a face. A child who didn't survive. A family torn apart. A dream never lived. We speak of paradoxes like puzzles, but in truth, they are graves. Graves of futures stolen before they ever began. So when we ask, what secrets has humanity lost because of time travel? We're not just asking about machines or medicines. We're asking about people. We are asking about futures. We're asking about the versions of ourselves that might have lived if time had been left untouched. And that is a grief almost too heavy to bear. Secrets humanity lost because of time travel. When we speak of secrets lost to time, we are not speaking of ruins alone. We are speaking of lives that might have been lived differently, of worlds that might have thrived, of answers humanity should have already held in its hands. And the truth is, we may never know how much we've lost. Because time, once rewritten, leaves no trace, no record of what could have been, only the hollow ache that whispers, something is missing. What if that missing piece was the cure to the diseases that take millions every year? What if it was the secret to free energy, to feeding the hungry, to ending wars? What if it was the wisdom to live in balance with the earth? Wisdom we so desperately need today. And what if all of it slipped away because of a single shift in time? One moment, one traveler, one choice, and the world we live in now is a shadow of what it could have been. We mourn for what we know we've lost, the burned libraries, the collapsed empires, the broken inventions. But the greatest grief lies in what we don't remember. The futures erased so cleanly that they live only as ghosts, haunting the edges of our imagination. We live in one version of reality, but how many better versions have been stolen away? Time travel is not just a dream or a theory, it is a responsibility. For every step backwards, there are echoes forwards. For every choice made in the past, there are futures lost in the present. And so we are left here in this fragile timeline with what remains, carrying the grief of what might have been, and the burden of what we must still build, even with broken tools. But maybe, just maybe, that is what makes us human. That even after losing so much, we still try, we still build, still dream. For though time may take away, humanity always begins again. We are storytellers, inventors, survivors. And even if time travelers erased 1,000 futures, we will keep making new ones. Yes, we have lost secrets. Yes, perhaps time itself has stolen them. But maybe the greatest secret is this, that we carry inside us the power to create again, to dream again, to write new futures that no traveler can erase. And perhaps that is the one thing time can never take. The answer is in us. Ending part, imagine it now. What if the greatest stories of humanity were never told? What if the cures, the inventions, the wisdom of centuries were not simply lost to fire or war, but stolen by the hands of time itself? You think of time travel as an adventure, a thrilling chance to rewrite the past. But what if without meaning to, we erased more than we created? What if our very footsteps in the river of time washed away the songs, the dreams, the names of people who should have lived forever in memory? And so, when we look at history and wonder why we cannot find all the answers, maybe the truth is not that they were forgotten. Maybe they were never allowed to exist, a traveler's mistake, a single stone thrown into the stream, and the ripples erased an entire symphony before it was ever written. The saddest part is not that we will never know what was lost, it's that we will never even know that it was missing. Perhaps that is the greatest paradox of all. Time doesn't just carry us forward, carries away the parts of us that could have been. And in that silence, in that aching emptiness, we find the deepest truth of time travel, that some of the most beautiful pieces of humanity may have been lost forever.